All right, so our next main project that we're going to be working on is going to be our 50-year energy plan. And big old Google spreadsheet thing going on here. And there's some parts that are grayed out, there's some parts that are blue, and some parts that are sort of red. We'll kind of talk about each of those individually. So the grayed out stuff is stuff that has already happened. So it's stuff that we can't change because it's in the past, already happened. What we are going to be able to do though is we're going to be able to put numbers into these green spots. And there's a couple of different goals that we have in line for us. One of the goals is to have no fossil fuels after 2040, which means that we have to be subtracting our coal and subtracting natural gas to get rid of those fossil fuels before 2040. And so we can start putting in some numbers, but there's some other things that we need to take a look at as well. If we scroll down, we have a lot of other options as well that we can kind of look at. And we get all the way down here, we get some thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley faces, sad faces, all sorts of things. So the first thing that we're going to look at is these three things need to be thumbs up. And so we're just going to work on sort of one decade at a time. So in the 2020s, right now, we don't have enough power being generated. We don't meet our energy needs. So somehow we have to generate 5 more in order to meet the needs of 110. All right, well, we can go ahead and do that. Let me just go ahead and throw 5 into here. Smart grid technology, no problem. Well, we run into a problem. We can see that by putting 5 there, we got some sort of error going on. And if we look over here, we can actually see what that error is. It tells us that our maximum percent change is 3. We can only update the grid so much at a given time. And so the highest value that we could possibly have here would be a 3. We can do that. Great, green, everything's happy. Of course, we see that we're not generating enough power. So now we do need to add 2 more somewhere else, and we can go ahead and put it right here. All right, so it seems like everything is perfectly happy. Thumbs up, we're producing enough electricity. You can produce more, and we'll get to that here in a second. 5 out of 55. So this part shows us how much change we can do in a decade. So we only did 5 things that we changed right here, but we could have done a lot more changes. And we'll see why that's important when we scroll back up and look at the top. Reliability, 4.4, that's decent. Again, you can't have something that's not reliable enough. So if you pick a lot of things that are very unreliable in terms of your energy resources, that's going to lower that reliability score, and it must be above a 3. So again, we kind of want to keep an eye on that. The other things that we might have noticed down here are land use, climate impact, and lifetime cost. And again, we want to try and keep these as happy as possible. Some people are willing to sort of sacrifice one of these things in order to make sure the others are really happy. Some people go for everything being somewhat happy. So you can kind of decide where you want those to end up being. And we can actually look and see what happened with our stuff over here. So it said the smart grid, we picked 3 of those. It says the smart grid uses 1 land use, so not much, very little impact on the climate, but a pretty high lifetime cost. And so that is why our lifetime costs started going up. Our air quality went down, again, because we're doing very good things for the climate. Our land use went up a little bit because each of these uses a little bit of land, more so in the energy storage. But that's all stuff that we can kind of think about. Now, as you get further down the road, some of these things might be more important, like this maximum is 12% for smart grid, maximum of 20% for energy storage. So the most that you can possibly get down the road is going to be that 20. So you can kind of think about, like, if you do 5 each year for that, right, you would eventually sort of run into problems because now you're at 25 and that's going to give you an error at the end. So again, you want to kind of mix and match things to decide how you want them. Just keep in mind sort of those maximum values that you're going to want to look at. So we said that this 5 out of 55, that we could have done a lot more changes, and we can see why we might want to do some more changes up here at the top. Remember that we want to get rid of all the fossil fuels. And so we want to be cutting these down. And so, well, the maximum change here is 25. So I couldn't do all 32 at once, but I could take away 25, right? That gets us to a reasonable spot that we know that we can get the rest done in the next decade. And then we're happy. We got zero coal from then on. So that's a good thing if we wanted to do something like that. But in subtracting 25, what happened? Well, we produce a lot less energy than we were expecting now because we shut down those coal plants. And so now we need to put that somewhere else, right? We need to have somebody else generating some electricity in order to help balance out the fact that we're closing those coal plants. And do you want to put it into hydro? Do you want to put it into nuclear, biomass, wind, geothermal, right? We've got all these different options for you. Again, keep in mind things like the land use, the climate, the cost, and the reliability. As you kind of work through fiddling around with these things, a lot of it's going to be like massaging a little bit here and there in order to get things to work out just right with all the thumbs up, and then move on to the next year. But sometimes you'll realize that you kind of painted yourself into a corner and you might need to go back and fix something. Again, just make sure that you get all those thumbs up before moving on to the next year, and so on and so forth, while keeping an eye on sort of what's important to you in terms of land use, air quality, things like that. We can see that my air quality went up quite a bit. I'm a lot happier now. I'm not crying. And that's because of shutting down all those coal plants, right? Helps the air quality a lot. But again, all that energy needs to be made up somewhere. So that's where you guys will fiddle around with stuff. Again, the only parts that you guys are going to be changing are these green, light green, or dark green spots. Those are the only places that you guys will actually put in values. Everything else is automatically calculating for you. Keep in mind that maximum mix. Again, some of those get to that maximum mix pretty quick. Keep in mind the maximum change that you can do at one time as you're going. And if you have any red errors along the edge here, or any red errors in the middle, or any thumbs down, obviously you need to fix those before moving on. Best of luck.